I now, think it's time to discuss next year's Champions League, which is a crazy thing to do, but I think it's an interesting topic. So, besides Manchester City, which Premier League team has the best chance to win next year's Champions League? Now, obviously, just to remind you, there's going to be only 4 teams in the Premier League next season, the normal top 4, because, the coefficient thing didn't land the way the Premier League favor based on UEFA results. In that situation, didn't go the favor of the Premier League. I think the 5 slots went to Serie A and Bundesliga. So the Premier League's 4 teams will be Manchester City, who won the title, obviously, Arsenal by finishing 2nd, Liverpool by finishing 3rd, and Aston Villa under Unai Emery not getting back because the last time I don't even know when's the last time they've been in European, but they've never been in the Champions League. Whenever it's been called the Champions League, they've probably been in like the European version of it, the European Cup, but they've never been in the Champions League since it's been called that. So their first appearance, and it'll be interesting to see Champions League games at Villa Park. I think that's something that'll be fun to watch. But so really comes down to between Arsenal, Liverpool, and Villa, which team has the best chance to make a run in the Champions League. Now, Arsenal European form under Arteta has been very, very weak. You can't argue that. In terms of European performance under Arteta, it's been very weak. It's been kind of embarrassing in certain aspects of it. Even I was talking about earlier this year, Arsenal had like 4 games, 3 of which were like 5-0, 5-0, 6-0 wins. In between that, sandwiched by a 0-1 loss away to Porto. It just, that screenshot for me just shows, Arsenal within Europe, and it's been bad for them. Last year, being knocked out. This is a team, by the way, that went to the final couple of weeks in the title race. So this was a strong Arsenal team, getting knocked out. Not last year, but the year, or not this year, but last year, getting knocked out by Benfica. You go back to them getting knocked out by Olympiacos, getting knocked out by Villarreal in the semifinals. There just has been no sort of European success, even in the Europa League. And then this year, their first year back in the Champions League, getting knocked out by a Bayern team in the quarterfinals, which we have to be honest, this is the weakest Bayern team in the last decade and a half, maybe, last 15 years, last 14 years. It was not a strong Bayern team. I believe it was a Bayern team that barely scrapped 70 points. They finished with 72 points this season and finished 3rd in the Bundesliga. And they weren't able to get past Bayern. And if you look at that game, in the first leg, you played well. You got up and down. It took a breakthrough to make it 2-2. But, you played well. In that second leg, it was meh. Especially when they conceded. You would think, okay, Arsenal, being the team that they are, the attacking display of talent that they show week in, week out in the Premier League, they would at least, at least show some sort, at least test Bayern. But, the Bayern center halves in that last 30 minutes they could have smoked a cigar and drank a cup of wine if they wanted to while watching what was going on. It was, there was no sort of real threat to them at all. They had one, half Odegaard chance. But apart from that, Arsenal, they didn't really test them at all. So it just shows, the pedigree under them, the European pedigree they've had against Arteta. It's been weak. Liverpool, on the other hand, they've been very, in terms of Europe, they have a strong history in terms of Europe. Very strong history. They have 6 Champions League titles. That happens to be the most amongst Premier League teams. It's actually double the amount more than the next team, which is Manchester United, with winning 6 as recently as winning 1 a few years ago under Klopp. So the pedigree is there with them. And with Champions League compared to other sports or any other tournaments or anything like that, Champions League is the league that history and tradition and culture matters the most. It happens to play an advantage. I don't know if it gets into the psyche of the players of the opposing teams, but when you're playing for a club like a Liverpool or a Real Madrid and you're going up against a team that's had less pedigree, it just seems like you have the psychological edge straight off the bat. And yeah, and I think Liverpool has that. But now the tricky thing with Liverpool is this new manager coming in, this reboot of this team, of this very successful generation that they had under Jurgen Klopp. It's going to be totally different. And different good or different bad is, remains to be seen. But I still believe, just based on the pedigree and some of the players that they have on this team that's had success in the Champions League, the experience that they have with the Andy Robertson, a Trent Alexander-Arnold, a Virgil van Dijk, a Mohamed Salah, a Luis Diaz, who went to the final, Jota too, who went to a final. They have a lot of players that's been at least to the final. Those last 2 players weren't on the team that won it, but it just shows this team, they have a good sense of experience. They still have talent within the squad. Arne Slot, hopefully Liverpool, the new ownership group, can bring him in a few players here and there that can, help him play his way and, create a smooth adaptation for Liverpool. I think Liverpool definitely gives out of all the Premier League teams besides City, definitely has the best chance. I'd give them a better chance to win the Champions League compared to Arsenal. Now, Aston Villa, obviously, I have to say that's the weakest of the 3. Just based on the squad, and this is the first time that a lot of these players have ever played a Champions League game. And that, again, when I'm talking about history, culture, all that plays a factor. The lack of experience can make you pay. You saw Newcastle this season, playing your first year in the Champions League. It's a unique experience. Now, I'm not writing them off of anything. I think they definitely still have potential to get out of the group and maybe cause, some sort of upset, a shock in the round of 16 or something. But in terms of, winning it all, going into the Bernabeu and getting a result against Real Madrid, or going to Allianz Arena and beating Bayern and that sort of, I just think the experience within the team is not enough, and I don't think the squads are there to compete with those sort of teams. Even this year, they weren't European Conference League. They weren't even able to reach the final in the European Conference League. It's just, I think Europe is just a little bit too much for them. I think their squad will get tested playing in Europe, in Champions League games, as long with Premier League games. And I just think, they're the... in terms of those 4, they're the last place team. But, still a remarkable achievement for Unai Emery to take this team to the Champions League. And I'll also say this, Unai Emery, don't count him out to make a run. He made a run with Villarreal. He took them all the way to the semifinals. And if he's ever able to take Villarreal to the semifinals, I think he can, I think he has a good chance of taking Aston Villa on some sort of run too, especially when you look at the fact that they've gotten to the Champions League. That brings in more money for this Aston Villa ownership group that has proven to be aggressive and wanting to win. It'll prove that that money getting from going into the Champions League will really help them be able to make, get more signings and, change the trajectory of their club. But yeah, I'd rank it Liverpool, Arsenal, Aston Villa. But I'd say this, Aston Villa, obviously, I'll I'd be shocked if they won the Champions League. I'd also go to that same level. I'd be shocked if Arsenal wins the Champions League, just based on their European pedigree of never winning a Champions League, and how they have, how have they been woeful in Europe ever since Mikel Arteta got in. They've been woeful in Europe. And I think Liverpool, now City is number one just based on the sheer talent that they have, obviously. But I think Liverpool is, number two.